Morning, everybody. I'm super excited to welcome Mayank Choudhary from Tech Mahindra. Mayank, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure having you.
We were chatting a little bit before, and you have an amazing background in partnerships and sales and ecosystems. We have much to talk about. But before we get going, it'll be great if you would please take a minute or two to introduce yourself and Tech Mahindra to our audience.
Thank you, Sugata. Tech Mahindra is part of the prestigious Mahindra Group, which is a $24 billion industrial conglomerate. Tech Mahindra is part of Mahindra Group and in itself is an independent organization, which is close to $7 billion in annual revenue. We are a pure play services company, and I have the honor of running the partner business for Tech Mahindra in Europe. We're very proud of the legacy that we have carried forward, as well as the transformation we are bringing across to 1,400 of our customers. My personal association with Tech Mahindra has been for the last 16 years, and I have lived my journey starting from an account manager to now running the partner ecosystem across Europe as the senior vice president. So it's been an amazing journey, and I'm glad to share those learnings along with you, Sugata.
That's amazing. So maybe you can double click a little bit on the IT services side. What are the typical verticals, domain expertise Tech Mahindra has?
So those of you who are aware of Tech Mahindra started as a joint venture between British Telecom and the Mahindra Group. So in our very early nascent days, we were called Mahindra British Telecom. Telecom was the sole vertical from where we started. And from those infancy days to the close to $7 billion, needless to say, telecom has been and continues to be the largest vertical. Under the able leadership of our new CEO, Mr. Mohit Joshi, banking financial services is the other large vertical that we are very proud and focused on globally, not just in Europe. And the third most important vertical for us would be manufacturing. Now, as a system integrator, we deal with clients across all the verticals outside what I have just spoken. But the top three verticals for Tech Mahindra, where meat of our revenue comes across, is what I just described: telecom, banking financials, as well as manufacturing.
Awesome. So let's take, each of these verticals and let's take a few minutes on each of those. You have had an amazing run and the company has grown exponentially over the last couple of decades. Walk us through, pick one, and what has the journey been like? Like, what do you think the changes happen? How did it change locally, globally, geographically? Let's just take one sector at a time. Maybe you start with manufacturing.
So if you look at manufacturing, we always pride ourselves to be a trusted partner of any of our respected customer rather than acting as a strategic vendor. Today, in today's world, the customer expects you to be a consulting or consultative partner who owns the end-to-end journey. And Tech Mahindra as a company is very proud of the fact that across our ecosystem of large manufacturing customers, we walk the talk when we present a transformation roadmap to the customer. Whether it is creating the future journey for them or bringing it down to the real world execution where the benefits are realized. Our mantra has always been, as a company, the end customers benefit. As much as a services company, we believe in evolving or transforming the customer's landscape that we are partnered with. But at the center or fulcrum of every move that we make in the manufacturing segment, or for that matter, in any of the verticals, it is the customer's end customer who remains our central focus. Now, we started off with manufacturing. For us, manufacturing has 5 facets that I can call across, which is across automotive, aero, industrial, discrete, and process. This, if you combine together, covers the gamut of offering that manufacturing customers expect. We all are very proud of the fact that the world today is completely advanced. Digital is not just a buzzword anymore, but it is a bread and butter for every customer. We are very proud to instrumentalize the various aspects. If I take the 5 examples that I took right now of the sub-processes of manufacturing, every journey that starts, we ensure that a customer's artificial intelligence journey, coupled with the generative AI features, or you bring in the aspects of building any journey that helps reduce cost, remains a very important aspect, and that helps bring in transformation. One of the key aspects, Sugata, we also tend to focus extremely high is aligning the business outcomes of the customers rather than talking traditionally about the IT KPIs and IT SLAs. And this, as you initially alluded, begins with the ecosystem of partners. So combine all this together helps create a wonderful transformational journey for the customer.
So take one of those manufacturing sectors, for example, automotive or industrial, and maybe you can double click on the construct of the ecosystem and then your engagement with the typical, client. What does the process look like? Because when you're transforming, you're redesigning go to market, you're redesigning a lot of the organizational pieces. And of course, you're, bringing in possibly digitization technology that they don't have today. So it's a multi-year process. So
Correct.
Can you kind of walk us through, pick a sector, if you can disclose even a client or a sort of a client, walk us through that journey.
So let me give you an example of world's largest chemical manufacturing company, BASF, headquartered out of Mannheim in Germany. And this is from my region. We are their sole partner in their network transformation journey. And when I say network, the enterprise network transformation journey. This is a customer which operates out of 72 countries at 600 sites. Now imagine they have to transform all 600 sites together at the same pace, the same speed, without impacting the business level criticality here. As Tech Mahindra, we have partnered on a journey which we are very proud of, where we are transforming their entire landscape without them having to worry about, is my manufacturing processes changing and is it going to cost me too much of capex investment? No. We have created an as a service model. We're working with our ecosystem of partners. We're not making the customer bleed capital infusion at the forefront or asking our partners to absorb the impact so that they make benefits as we move forward. We have created a model here where for every transaction that we do is defined in a DORA called network as a service model. Simply means we're not converting the capex to an opex model, but rather from a manufacturing standpoint for this critical customer BASF, everything that has to do with their network, for every transaction that leads a benefit, we will be building a commercial model so that the customer pays for the service that they consume. And look at the size of the customer. We're talking about 600 locations across 72 countries. What it required a massive process change. So a lot of process re-engineering happened. It required a lot of people change management. You had to rejig folks who could be better utilized in the new scheme of things. You had to work with the ecosystem of partners to transform the landscape without having the customer, as I said initially, to bleed a lot of capital expenditure. So these are a few examples, and I can quote quite a few of them again in the manufacturing space. If you let me come back quickly to the telco space. We have one of the most premium customer in Europe called KPN. It is the Royal Dutch telco here. We are transforming, we have contracted into multi-year contract with them called autonomous operations, where today the telco, it is a premier, very innovative telco, but their operations operate at level 3. Now with TechM's expertise and the process change that we are bringing, our end objective is to take them to level 5, where they reach autonomy. And mind you, the intention absolutely is not that if you're freeing resources or bandwidth, it's a loss of job. No, we are creating those FTEs or freeing up those FTEs to be utilized in a far effective manner. Now, what it means, besides the organizational change process, it also requires bringing in a lot of innovative aspects across the technology spectrum. So just a few.
I want to come back to sort of, the services model, like kind of pay as you go, which has existed in the software side. GE Capital, I was at Honeywell, and GE Capital sort of pioneered the airline financing. So, you're in the business of taking passenger A from point A to point B, and we finance the airplane, right?
Right.
So what I'm hearing from you is a lot of the infrastructure now you're bringing in ecosystem partners, sort of kind of use as you go or build. Can you double click on that? Because I spent some time with Jeff Winter, who is an industry 4.0 expert, a couple of weeks ago on a podcast. And he was talking about that's a major trend in the industry because people don't want to tie up their CapEx and they want to have efficiency, but they also want to have expertise because things are changing so fast. They can't just put a piece of equipment on the floor and say, I'm done. They need a partner like you who is looking out, thinking out, and transforming as they are operating. So can you talk a little bit about that financial part of that ecosystem that you bring into your customer base?
So the beauty in today's technology world with large technology partners is that they also strongly appreciate the value of financing that comes across. Now, some of these large giants have their own financing. Some of them take third parties' help. Our core focus has been driven by the fact that the customer doesn't bleed. The financial creativity works in a manner where the financing plays a critical component. And when we bake the entire transformation into as a service model, we ensure that the technology partner is benefited for the overall size of the technology, whether it is hardware or software that they are selling. They get the full value of what they have envisaged. As Tech Mahindra, combining together with our expertise of service, we bake these assets that we have brought across. For the ease of convenience, I'm using the term assets. We bake into the offering and convert into a fully as a service managed services. The actual ownership, if you ask me, Sugata, lies with the financing partner, because the biggest advantage these folks bring in is you will have a defined refresh cycle, especially for the hardware. Some customers do it in 3 years' time. Some customers would do it in 4 years of time. That's the max. No one carries beyond that. After 4 years, these financing arms of either the technology company's own unit or third parties can better refresh or reutilize the available capacity that they have for either for other customers or for refurbishing in some cases, or even in many cases, taking it and safely discarding as per the need of the environment. What it does is, as an SI, I am only worried about delivering an outcome. The customer is happy because customer is getting the outcome that has been defined, the business outcome that I spoke about. Again, without having to worry about spending too much of capital expenditure, they have a clear line of sight that how much consumption is happening on that as a service model. And as an SI, eventually at the end of the day, I can focus on delivering a better outcome rather than worrying about how would my aging assets or how would my technology look into 4 years down the line. This becomes a win-win situation for all of them and helps me focus more on transformational aspects that can be brought across to the customer. We are seeing a massive trend across verticals with customers who are big time focusing, especially large banks who have spent multi-billions, not even millions, multi-billions on making themselves asset heavy.
So I want to come back to redeployment of assets. I saw a video. There's a company called Crusoe in California that is reusing EV batteries for data center backup, because a typical EV, when it gets to a certain capacity, you can't use it anymore, but it still may have 3 to 5 years of life. So is that relatively new, that, sort of redeploying used assets in different parts of the ecosystem, or has it been around for a while? Is it getting more organized? There's more financing in place? Like in my days, when I was long time ago, when I was in manufacturing, used equipment, it used to end up in junkyard.
Yeah.
Like, how has that changed?
So you helped me answer that question by bringing 2 important points. It has become more structured in the last 3 or 4 years. Especially, I think COVID played a critical role. As much as for the humanity, it was a very, very difficult time period, but it created a lot of structure in how things are getting organized. Second, there is a lot of financing happening now. Now, for example, if you're using earlier, if you look at the traditional server providers, partners like Lenovo, HP, Dell, to your point, you use it earlier, a decade back or 2 decades back, use it. Once done, a new version has come, it's landing in junkyard. Today, you can reutilize the capacity that is available. You can expand it in the data centers as long as it is working up to the standards. Bear in mind, there's no compromise in quality when I say they're refurbishing or repurposing. There's absolutely no compromise there. But then, with the capacity that world requires, whether it is for compute or storage, I think there's a massive scope that exists, and the advent of cloud has obviously expedited a lot of aspects. So we all understand the regulations Europe has, which is respected, but within those regulatory boundaries, you also see countries now have data residency. Even within EU, Union, you want country specific. So the scope has widened, things have got organized, and there are a lot of financing aspects available, which helps reutilize. And of course, at the core of all it, sustainability.
So I want to kind of build on the manufacturing. One of the point that Jeff Winter, he made that 20 years ago, you had a separation of IT and OT. People who ran the floor, they had their own budget, own infrastructure, and people who, connected your PC to the network, internet, it was another department. Today, because of this transformation driven by companies like yours, it's all interconnected, right? And telco is the backbone of it because, when you think about this logistics, I was traveling with somebody from Gap on the plane, and she was telling me they have anywhere between 7 to 9 days to figure out what lines will hit the seasonal fashion. And they have to tell all of their suppliers to ship from, cotton from Egypt to Indonesia and t-shirts to San Francisco. And that seems like an incredible technological feat to address demand, because if they don't hit that 30 to 45 days window, they can't have margins. So telco, this entire infrastructure is running on telco, right? So can you talk a little bit about what does the telco ecosystem look like? What trends are you seeing in that space? 5G, people are talking about 6G, 7, like where is this thing going?
In fact, it is not just IT and OT. I will add the third element of network. So it is now a converged environment of an IT, OT, and network. There are many customers who traditionally, from a telco standpoint, ended up running IT and network were always existing in the telco space. OT was towards their B2B side of business. Today, they are converging the entire stack because telco no more is a standalone telco. They have become a complete techco these days. New avenues are getting created. To your point that you gave the example with the lady telling you about the challenges, a lot of companies and companies like us, it is not just exclusive to Tech Mahindra, but global system integrators are bringing the converged theory of merging networks, IT and OT together so that you can make effective utilization in the entire journey that is needed. Simulating back to your example, whether it is picking up cotton, whether it is picking up t-shirts, ensuring within that 45 days window, if you have this converged environment, telcos become the horizontal backbone, or you can say the platform aggregator, which can lead to reduction in the lead time to repair, what we typically call. So the MTTR, typical term that we use in telco, gets reduced when you have a converged environment. And across the globe, 60 to 70% of the telcos have already embarked on the journey and are finding benefits because of this convergence.
So can you talk a little bit about the play that you have into that trend?
So as a global system integrator across these three areas, when we combine this together, the biggest benefit that a telco derives is a single pane of glass for visibility. They do not have to worry about how my IT systems or how my network systems are behaving independently. Both of them are standalone, pretty complicated in their own nature. And for a telco, a network is the heart of their entire execution strategy. Now, as Tech Mahindra, when we work together. Our core focus across these customers is to ensure that the differentiative values that we bring across in the telco vertical, and we are not a product company, mind you, but we build a lot of accelerators to speed up the business benefits that can be derived through the convergence. Now, example, if I give you, for many telcos, when we contract with them, we not just modernize their entire IT, but also draw a very clear line of demarcation or separation as to how the network will get impacted. A live example I'll give you. Monitoring is a very common space here. You need to monitor your IT assets. You need to monitor network assets. How much effective benefit can you bring across if you bring one single pane of glass in monitoring, so that the customer can go down at any point of time, the CIO or the business owners can go down and see from a CIO's lens, how are my systems working across the spectrum? The business folks can see how much effective business is happening from a telco standpoint, should be able to figure it out. What is the percentage order fallout that is happening? Are my orders going through in the system safely or not? So as Tech Mahindra, we strongly believe in what I just mentioned, the convergence of both of them that leads to an desired transformative outcome.
So I listened to a speech made by Robert Reich, who's here at Stanford, and he said three things. It said, as human beings, first we care, second we think, and I may be mixing up the order, but maybe first we think, second we care, and third we make. And technology has an impact in all of those. When it's care, from pharmaceuticals to healthcare, there's an entire ecosystem, right? Think like what we do in the knowledge workspace, like the solutions you create, and then make is what you're referring to. So when you think about these three, what we do, but the blood flow through this is cash, is finance,
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So banking and finance, when you take manufacturing, which is kind of connected by this telco backbone, at the end of the day, it stays alive through money flowing through the system.
True.
Right. So can you talk a little bit about the banking and that infrastructure at both at a local and a global level, how they are and how they're different?
Look, banks are the backbone of any economy. And the industry has been one key industry which has been extremely transformative from a vertical perspective. They have been at the forefront of transformation and the spend that has happened across the globe. Keep aside the subprime crisis period, they have never shied away from investments. Now, again, the capital available, whether it is into the capex side or opex side, is limited. So what we are doing as companies are trying to modernize a lot of legacy that existed. Banks are one of the major consumers along with airlines on the mainframes. But mainframes is very pivotal to the success of banks and airlines. But can you free up, I'm just simulating an example, unutilized MIPS, so that just one of those examples, those freed up cash can be utilized for any transformation roadmap that we plan to execute with them. We'll give you a simulative example with one of the largest banks. I'm not naming for the sensitivity. I don't have the approval. They are one of the global banks across the globe, headquartered out of Hong Kong. So easy for all to guess. For them, they had been performing very well. But when it came down to their robotic process automation journey, they were dealing with on-premise systems that had been installed with the technology partner that we're working. We went back to them, cloudified their journey, again in an pay-as-you-go model, helped them free up cash, and as much as they appreciated the saving, they used that money for further transformation on ensuring that anti-money laundering related aspects get covered so that there is proper detection happening. So the message I want to give, Sugata, is that banks have always been open to spending money, but if you can free up cash through transformation for them, they're always willing to reinvest in further transformation and taking it forward. There are many such examples that I can walk you through across different banks. Temenos is a large banking platform partner. traditional examples with banks where you partner with Temenos, implement in the environment, and it's a beautiful solution. But then again, you needed tons of internal hardware, tons of process that would go across. If you now take that same Temenos and work with hyperscalers, you can implement that on the cloud-based model and let the customer decide that your transformation journey is completed, but do not worry on this entire journey of having to spend X million dollars or X million euros here. Use it on a consumption-based model that frees up cash to further look down into whether it is infra modernization or process modernization or their IT modernization. So that's the journey banks have been taking.
Okay. So I want to come back to each of these ecosystems now that you roughly define sort of a broad trends and drivers. Let's start with banking. You know, banking, we have, lack of a better frame. Let's say there are three kind of core types of banks emerging. You have global banks like JP Morgan, HSBC, Deutsche Bank, etc., that are cross-border, multi-asset, sort of what they call end-to-end from their word. Then you got local banks, like in the US, we have, Wells Fargo and UK Nationwide and whatever these,
Right.
banks are. Then you have in the US, like credit unions, which are local.
Okay.
They all provide financing, right? At a different level. So when you look at your ecosystem, who is roughly in your ecosystem from a finance perspective?
Well, difficult to say that I have the flexibility as Tech Mahindra to just pick. It gets defined by the geographical nuances. That will be the most apt answer from my side, Sugata. Driven by the fact that as much as the capacity of global banks is massive, they have the scale to finance in a multi-country kind of transformation deals. But then it isn't limited to only one set of partners for us, depending on the appetite. So if I have to simulate, if I go to South Africa, as much as most of the global banks exist there, but the national bank is someone that is more keen and more affirmative, supported by the government to take initiatives of financing. This is regional limitation that comes across. Similarly, when you go to Middle East Bank, as much as all the global banks have the power, I would love to work with an Abu Dhabi National Bank, for example, because not just they have the scale within the country, but it is also the ease of convenience, courtesy, the aspects of regulatory affirmation, local presence. So the simple answer would be we work with all three of them, purely defined by A, the scale, B, the geographical remit that we are permitted to work with.
So one of the new trend, especially, over the last 10 years and post-COVID, we're seeing this private equity, sort of Blackstone and others coming in a huge amount of capital. SoftBank is another one of them, financing at least the compute infrastructure, right? Buying land, building out data centers, financing in a way. Do you see that them playing sort of in a focused role in certain countries, or are they broad? Like, how do they engage with service providers like you? And from a process wise,
it's global, Sugata. And we are very proud as Tech Mahindra to work with private equity companies across the globe. I mean, we roughly work with almost 70 to 80% of them. And some of our strategic customers are today owned by these private equity companies. Now, let's be appreciative of the fact when a private equity company invests, their core focus is to grow the company, make it profitable, and potentially, if there is a chance of selling it at a profit, they would look into it. Hence, they are very particular in the spend of cash that they actually infuse in transformation. They are the ones who are very firm in forcing us, is the only word, going the journey of an outcome-based defined model. So private equities are not shy in investing, and we are very proud of the association. But the fact is, they need very clear-cut outcome that we can deliver. And there are quite a few customers across the globe. If I take parallels of Europe, we have some very strategic customers in the whole of continent, whether it is UK, Nordics, Benelux, who are private equity owned, and we have been serving them very well. But as I said, at the heart of it, it is transformation at speed. That is why you see Techem's narrative that says scale at speed. That's the narrative we see. Private equity partners have been very influential in helping us align to the scale of speed notion. So they want transformation at a speed and at a defined cost, because they have a defined outcome in their mind when they look at the end state of transformation.
So I know we're talking at a macro level. So in the finance sector, we define, maybe macro 4 categories. You have national banks, you have global banks, you have local banks, and you have private equity. If you take telco as a sector, there are 3-4 pillars like global telcos, local telcos, regional. Like, what are the clusters you typically look at in telcos?
So global telcos, if you look, unless you're talking about, I don't want to segregate my customers there because each of them remain important. But then I'm cognizant of the fact that if you're looking like companies like AT&T, BT, Telefonica, these are telcos which operate in a multi-country setup. So they obviously have the scale, the reach, but that does not mean that small telcos do not play a critical role. There are telcos whose customer base is million and a half, and small countries in Europe, but they play extremely transformative role. Now, of course, the scale, the smallest telcos will not be able to bring the scale and will not have the appetite, purely driven by the fact that the consumer base is not strong. But then, to the example that you gave of the banking, telcos can definitely be segregated into the global telcos, and they have a bigger appetite and bigger wallet share for transformation, run or operate.
So in manufacturing, you already started with multiple sectors. So I'm not going to go back there because you've already covered. And the reason I spend a little bit of time going through these sectors at a high level for our audience is to show sort of the diversity of complexity and use cases that as a system provider, system integrator, you have to deal with. So I want to flip the other side of the equation, which is your organization. So when you think about this diverse customer base, right, they are fundamentally different yet connected, right?
Yes.
Manufacturing to telco to finance. And then you have regulations that you're referring to at a local level. Talk a little bit about your, organization, maybe on the partnership side and then the broader delivery side. How do you approach on your side the transformation you need to drive ahead of your customers so you can deliver them what they want?
Well, we strongly believe in drinking our own champagne. And this alludes to the fact that if I look at some of the examples I'll give, and internally from my internal IT perspective, I have plethora of partners whose technology is implemented. So each one of them are truly respected and unique in their own sphere. But to give you a few examples, if I look at today's ServiceNow, which is a very strong enterprise organization working literally across the planet and helping transform a lot of customers. Before even getting to multiple customers, we transformed ourselves. Our internal service management system, service operation system went into ServiceNow. Look at SAP, the world's largest ERP system. Before, we've got more than 300 customers with whom we work, whether it is on taking them to SAP S/4HANA migration or whether it is about the various offerings that SAP has. We first implemented the complete S/4HANA internally. So these are few examples that I want to give you where, as a company, we strongly believe that internal transformation, if not done before other customers, has to be at par or at speed. It helps you in two things. It helps you feel actually if things have gone wrong, what exactly would the customer be feeling if things have not gone as per the plan of implementation. So it's an added cushion where you have learned from your own internal environment. Second, it helps you to experiment. We strongly believe, and we are very proud of our leadership, who has been a strong proponent of fail fast, recover faster. It becomes a perfect experimentative bed. Now, I would be very cautious of saying that we don't experiment on the production environment because we have some amazing lab setups with these partners that we have done. But that gives us a complete test bed to test things within our own environment before we take it across. And also helps build our confidence that whatever journey we are taking is completely fructified when it gets implemented in the customer's environment. So the simple answer would be we drink, as I said, our own champagne before executing it to other customers.
So let's kind of double click from an organizational perspective. You're kind of the chief partner officer in Europe. How does your organization look like? What is the structure? How do you work with partners from deal initiation perspective, from, deal development, deal closing, delivery? Can you kind of walk us through that journey?
Brilliant. This is my favorite question. I was waiting for this part to come across. So at the onset of it, transparency is the core mantra that I and Tech Mahindra both follow very strongly. Now, if you look at Europe that I was talking about, we're roughly close to around $2 billion of revenue when it comes to Europe. Roughly 1/4 of that revenue comes from what we classify as partner-led revenue. For us, partner-led revenue is anything that we resell under the sky, anything that we buy across our entities in Europe primarily and offer a combined managed services. And the third is the standard influence that the whole world practices, where we work together in a deal and the customer has contracted. Now, across the entire deal cycle, it is always important that you are talking, speaking, whining, dining when there is no deal on the table. This has been my biggest practice in life and success mantra, where before an RFP comes in, how close you are and how are you strategizing to win this. Remember, when an RFP is out and you have not formed an alliance or a partnership, you've lost 50% of the chance to even come back. Unless you have literally written and the RFP is an eyewash, which doesn't happen. Customers are the smartest of all. Two things that lie at the core, Sugata, is when we decide on a transformation journey, let's take an example of an application modernization, completely of a legacy bank. You will need, they've got a lot of legacy applications that needs to be modernized. Applications may have to be built into a microservices architecture or needs to be containerized or might even have to be moved to a cloud, whatever be the journey be. When you select a partner, the internal team does a complete due diligence, the pre-sales team, the large deals team in Tech Mahindra. And when we zeroed out, we have a simple philosophy that either we'll sail together or we fail together. So that brings down to my first point, the transparency. So as much as each partner is important for me, but driven by the fact that how much had we collaborated earlier for a customer and defined the game strategy to win, coupled with my solutions, architecture and large deals team, determines the partner that we are going ahead.
So can you take one specific deal as an example without maybe disclosing the confidential aspect of it? Kind of walk us through who is a typical partner. Is it ServiceNow or what, explain who that is and then talk about the application, and then how we would go through the sales cycle, the collaboration that happens from you, because the complexity that you just defined, it's not one person working with another person. It's like a whole team working with multiple teams, maybe at a geographical level. So talk about that orchestration, how you kind of go through.
So let me give you an example, and this is an open secret that we know. KPN that I spoke about, the Dutch telco, I'll give you, which I'm very proud of, the journey of autonomous operations, taking them to level 5 of maturity in the journey. When we were in the journey together we are a services company, as a system integrator, there were multiple partners who were into the evaluation phase, both by us and both by the customer. Now, we did a consultative exercise together with the customer that in their end state of the envisioned outcome, which partner would fulfill the journey. Once we zeroed down, we saw that, and again, I put it with a disclaimer that every partner is respectable and equally important for me. But then in this particular case, we saw that the entire outcome of the journey that the customer is desiring gets fulfilled with Nokia's solution. So Nokia have offerings like NORC for the operation side of the network. They have got on the assurance side, the NAC platform. And when we combined all together, we saw that the journey roadmap with Nokia's offerings works perfectly seamless and will help. We then went ahead right from the top to the bottom. When I say top to the bottom, we went up to the CEO, CRO level along with our leadership. And from the bottom perspective, aligned very well with the account manager. At an entire leadership level, there was one firm commitment that now that we have decided, consulted with the customer, we'll go together in that journey. And we created a full force where we jointly developed proof of concept. We jointly showcase, show and tell how the future would look like. Very clearly knowing that the customer might realize at some point of time, oh, Tech Mahindra, you are not fitting all the check boxes that we are designing. Maybe Nokia might be fitting. But we were fully committed to the fact that we will cover each other's shortfall and help achieve jointly the end state that the customer wants. The outcome after a 12-month journey was we both successfully won the business. Nokia contracted with the customer on the entire platform on a multi-year, multi-million deal. We contracted on the services part. The core again remaining that once we were clear in our heads and across, as I gave you the example right from top, my CEO getting involved to the account manager entirely. And there was an army. It takes a village to succeed. So everyone was fully aligned that it is Nokia. And it doesn't mean that Nokia's competition in this space are anywhere less. They are equally competent. But we knew that the end state of the customer would work together. And if there were any shortfall in the journey, we covered each other to learn from each other with the core objective of defining the customer's end objective. I hope that gives you a picture or flavor how we work with partners.
No, that's simply amazing. I want to go back to the customer side, from their side also, because when I was in larger companies, system integration business was kind of getting started because at that point in time, people used to do most of it in-house. Now it's too complex and they can't afford to have everybody in-house and it doesn't make sense. So what I've heard from the friends that I have in integration companies is that most large organizations, they will have multiple SIs from a risk diversification perspective. And so I want to bring in this dimension of co-opetition, right? And I heard in one scenario, I had a guest in that they talked about like working with a competitor, closing a deal, and they serve different parts of the solution. Are those the scenarios you also come across?
100%. For the sake of confidentiality, I would not name, but if we were having this conversation, Sugata, 5 years back, and you had told me that, Mayank, will Tech Mahindra be keen to collaborate with another large system integrator? I would say, Sugata, I need to come back, talk to my legal and see what is the art of possibility. Today, the world has changed. There are a lot of customers where we are not just co-located, but we are co-delivering jointly. As long as you have the RACI clearly defined, accepted and agreed with the customer, it is absolutely no problem. What we do not practice or preach is keeping customer in dark and potentially subcontracting a piece of work or becoming a subcontractor to some vendor. We as Tech Mahindra do not believe it, but if the customer is comfortable, driven by the customer's end objective, as a company, we're very, very keen to collaborate with larger or smaller system integrators. And a lot of my learned competition is also practicing the same model. Because as I said, the ecosystem is not just limited to the technology players. It is also very well aligned with the system integrators as well. So it's a co-located, cohabited, co-executed model.
That's amazing. So I want to come back to the center of all this discussion. You work on very, very complex problems. You're outcome driven. You're also horizon driven because it's not a project. It's a continuation of
correct
transformation. At the heart of it is people because,
yes.
You have hundreds and thousands of people on the partner side, your side, customer side. Talk to a little bit from a people dimension perspective. How do you hire? How do you grow? How do you retain in a hyper competitive, talent war market? And then we'll talk a little bit about, impact and implications of AI in that space.
As we said, for us, as I said, for Tech Mahindra, people are the heart of we are a services company, heart of any outcome that we envision to achieve. So people come first, irrespective of any dimensions that we think about. Now, I am fully appreciative of the fact that talent is an acute shortage. It's a literal war, if I may have the flexibility of using the term. Now, we believe in a complete diverse workforce, That's one of the fundamental aspect that gives us far more bandwidth to go and search for good talents. So irrespective of caste, creed, gender, nature, ethnicity, religion, country, nationality, anything that you bring it under the roof, we look for people who have the desire to succeed. That's the most important aspect. You can always train. The world is so hyper compact these days that there are enough training materials that you can use. But do the desire or the attitude in that individual exists to succeed? A. B. We also look for grooming in-house talents. So as much as we are very appreciative of the external folks that come across, we groom internal talents. We're very proud to say that in a company of 140,000 people, we've had initiatives where the entire organization is getting future ready by certifying themselves. And it's a company's investment on all the major technologies. It is not just that we're running towards getting into the generative AI route. And when it comes to benefits, that keeps retainment depending on the performance metrics. Performance is the sole criteria. We do ensure that we are, if not the highest paying organization on this planet, we take care of our people, because as a services company, people remain at the fulcrum or heart of our achievement. So it's a continuous evolving journey where we invest on people to make them future ready. We groom internal talents to take leadership role. That is why majority of our leaders are internal homegrown and they get elevated. The proof in the pudding is the average in today's industry where people change jobs. You will find people in Tech Mahindra, a company which started in 86. You have people who have had 30 years of association, 35 years of association. So these are combined factors, but yes, from a people perspective, they remain at the fulcrum of any priority that the organization has.
So I have one last question, and I guess two questions. First one is going back to what we were talking before the podcast recording was, there's a lot of hype and fear associated with AI. A lot of these tool company CEOs are going out and ringing alarms that thousands of jobs would be eliminated in the service industry. But also, from a product company perspective, we're using a lot of AI and we haven't let anybody go. And we know how helpful it has been to reduce our debt, right? Whether it's in marketing, whether it's in sales, whether it's in product and customer success. So talk to us a little bit about how you see application of AI, how it's getting played out in the system integration industry.
I'll simulate this with an example from Tech Mahindra directly. I'll take you back. It's a public news. Sam Altman is a highly, highly respected technocrat. He threw up a challenge to India 3 years back that can India ever build its own large language model? If you follow Twitter or the trends on Google, our then CEO, Mr. Gurnani, had accepted this challenge. And within a short span, at a fraction of an investment, we built one of our own large foundational models, a large LLM model, which has gone in production. So in Indonesia, we call it a public news. It's a large, diverse country. The LLM foundational model that we have built across is being utilized by the citizens. It's called the Sahabat, the Bhasha Sahabat, to interact for all the government related affairs in their own dialects, not even language. The advancement of AI helped us compute or derive the first therapeutic molecule when COVID was creating Mahem. I spoke about the Bharat markup language earlier. India is such a diverse country with so much of dialects coming in. The Sahabat example was for Indonesia. We have used AI to create that. We created the first metaverse bank across the globe with one of the public sector banks of India. India is still a very heavy agri-farm based economy. A lot of people still depend on agriculture and agriculture is very heavy. We're using AI to create app for farmers and we've already productionized it to 140 million farmers there. I give you these relevant example. In doing so, we didn't have to get rid of people. We're very proud of the fact. Of course, there will be churn. If somebody says somebody has joined Tech Mahindra and all his life or her life has stayed, That's going to be an unfair statement. There will be churn. But the resources that have got freed up, they're either being utilized into, as I said, after training or enhancements of making them future ready, they're being utilized, or they're being future trained with the same advanced AIs to future proof these solutions. So from a Tech Mahindra perspective, we are not scared. We have embraced AI. The entire organization across the functions of sales, delivery, pre-sales, support is going through AI training. And it's not something that has been pushed because you have to do. It's out of willingness people are doing and adopting. I'll simulate in 30 seconds my example. Using, and again, I'm not branding Microsoft here, but using Copilot, my job has become 70% easier on email typings. I can use the time freed up for something far more effective, even to the extent of my personal benefit of learning or spending time on some hobbies, which, by the way, I would have not found. So it is all about adoption rather than fearing about you're losing something. And I personally, this is my belief, AI is not something that has come right now. AI has been existing. It's just the form and the media coverage that has been provided is creating that hype.
And I think it's a very fair statement from someone like you who has seen digital transformation, because in the consumer space, we've been sort of the receiver on Amazon, one-click shopping and etc. And recommendation engine, but very few people knew the ML that goes behind that. So you're absolutely right. It has been in existence. I think it kind of, encompassed a visualization of what that is and connected with Hollywood and everything else.
True.
But Mayank, I want to come back to the last question. First of all, I have to have you back. And I think I'm going to see if I can get Jeff Winner and you together. I think it will be an amazing discussion.
So I would love to.
I want to come back to your own journey. Talk to someone entering the workforce, from a leadership perspective, the success that you have had, the progress that you made from a personal level. If you had some advice to a new recruit, whether Tech Mahindra or any company, what are the 2 or 3 traits that they need to focus on?
Very good question. And this is, in fact, I'll rate this favorite than my partnership question. First, celebrate failure. It may sound cliched, but celebrating failure is never wrong in my own journey. It helps you learn faster, stand up quicker, and run smoother. Second, be bold. Never be afraid of change. Change is the constant that will drive your passion towards achieving whatever you want to achieve. And third, be transparent and humble. Humility, in spite of the entire changes, has always remained a very strong virtue. And somebody taught me that the biggest virtue an individual can carry is being humble and empathetic. So these 3 traits with an attitude to succeed. Never be scared of failure. Never be. Failure is the bigger stepping stone success of the upcoming future. So be bold. Be passionate, never let your passion go down, and be humble. That will be my few advices to anyone in any streams entering the workforce. You're bound to succeed.
Well, with that amazing note, I want to sincerely thank you for being here. It's been an amazing conversation, and I'd love to have you back. Thank you, Mayank.
Thank you, Sugata.